So what I'm going to take us through here is going to be from the procedure side, just talking about some of the capabilities. Obviously, we've shown it within the slides here, but figure it makes sense to go a little bit more in depth. And then we'll talk about action flows, which is going to be the core of this, how we build them, some of the capabilities tied to this use case, and more importantly, how they're going to be able to be leveraged in other ways. And then I'll show you a quick conversation of what you've seen here to be able to get that side-by-side view of our customer and our agent working through that process. So here we're within our procedure, excuse me, there's a few things on the right to talk about how to build it. I will say there's a few key areas to think about when you're building these procedures. First one is going to be data. So in this case, this is able to take a look at any information within the ticket, as we've kind of talked about, but can also ask for additional details as well. So you'll see here being able to ask a question for a serial number, which is the example we're going to take a look at, and then being able to leverage that moving forward, not only within the flow, but as well to be able to take some of those actions. As we mentioned, there's two ways in which we can approach actions. So first is going to be with natural language, which you'll see here. So looking up the device information, I can reference that action flow. Today, you can also use this plus, as we talked about, to be able to reference at least an external action, as we're calling them. Action flows will be added to this at a later time, but as we mentioned, people don't always trust that generative is going to pick up on it. So we want to give something a little bit more declarative from a tooling perspective. So that way it knows exactly what to call upon. And I'll mention that when we think about Zendesk actions, so update a ticket field, do things like that, you don't need to have a pre-built action built because it has access to all the ticket fields within the ticket itself. You can just tell it to update whatever field it is, and it'll go ahead and do that. And I'll mention that it can also fire off multiple of these simultaneously, but they will not fire off sequentially. It's important to note that they all fire off in parallel, which is why action flows are going to be a huge value in terms of being able to have that more ordered and structured approach. Then the last piece is going to be logic around this. As we mentioned, outputs are going to be coming pretty soon. So that way, when we do make an API call, we can pass data back. And the core value within the procedure itself is going to be the idea that if, for example, the device is working or not working, and we're able to detect that via API, then let's build some logic to decide which way to go. So just having that logic baked into the procedure. So again, as we save time for those agents. So obviously, the star of the show here is going to be our action flow concept. We're talking about it as it ties back into the procedures and Copilot in general. But I do want to point out that this is also going to be based upon ticket events as well. We have plans to extend it to users, organizations too. And really, the value there as we start to think about some of the future use cases is maybe having a single action flow that can do all of your routing because you can just have a conditional block in here, which I can actually pull up some of the block types here. So a ticket is created based upon the 6 values in the field, route it. So as we think about trigger management and rule management today, it'll definitely change the game. But obviously today we are talking about it specifically around just using it within AI. So we like to talk about the fact that we have our inputs. So using some natural language, we say, hey, we have a serial number, we have ticket details, really any of those inputs that we need to be able to perform this process. And then from there, we go ahead and step through it. And we can branch based upon that information. We can do some Zendesk actions like looking or updating the ticket. But where we're going to put a lot of focus into and where I think a lot of the value is going to be derived is going to be within our external concept here. So being able to have some pre-built connectors with some pre-built actions within here. These are the 4 that are shipped today for folks that have worked with this, but we have plans to add many more. And I would say over the next 6 to 9 months, it's going to be probably the most exciting part. And then, of course, for folks that can't wait to be able to take some of these actions in these other systems, we have that ability to have our custom actions, as we're calling them. So maybe those single step API calls that we want to go ahead and do to go ahead and get more information, take action in another system. And once we have outputs, pass back into that procedure to be able to do a little bit more. So for this example, I have that information about the device. I utilize a call to go ahead and take a look at that device and some of the information behind it. And then I update our ticket to be able to take the diagnostic details and write it back and then tie that related object here that's going to sit within Zendesk for this example and tie it back to that ticket so we have that analytics behind it. So what does this all ticket look like in action? So if I come into my conversation here, Hannah's come in. She has an issue with her thermostat within here, so she needs to go ahead and troubleshoot it. Reaches out to support via the Essentials bot, and it asks for the serial number to go ahead and continue. Once I hand over that serial number, it's going to go ahead and take those actions. So as mentioned, I want to go ahead and update the ticket on the left. So that way we have that serial number from an analytics perspective. And as well, we also want to look at that device information, write it back into the ticket here. So being able to pull both of those at the same time. And then once I go ahead and approve that, those actions will go ahead and be taken. So that it writes that serial number to the ticket and then ties that thermostat here. So that way we have that information. I can go ahead and take a look at that on the sidebar here as well. And then you'll see that action run to be able to go ahead and write to the ticket. So as the agent, maybe want to give them a little bit more context around what's happened. We can provide that here as an internal note. So in this case here, it lets me know that there's been some kind of issue, gives me a few options around what I can do. And then from there, I can take the final steps to be able to do something like close the ticket, set up an order in an order management system, utilizing those action flows to be able to take those steps and those actions. So in this case, also setting the ticket to solved. So I'll go ahead and finish that off. And that's going to be our demo today around that. Really wanted to show the user experience tied back to the two admin sides just to give you a full idea of what it looks like. And as we've kind of talked about, being able to have that end-to-end process, isn't it? Whereas an agent, I could take a couple clicks, super valuable for our customers.